I'd like to call the meeting of the Lord Selkirk West Kildonan Community Committee to order on February 24th at approximately 9:40 a.m. We're meeting here on Treaty 1 land, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people. We also receive our water from Shoal Lake 40 in the Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ross Eady. I'm the City Councilor for Benarski, and I'll be your chairperson today. And my colleagues here today, I have Councillor Santos is here from Point Douglas, and we have Councillor Sharma from Old Kildonan. And from our public service, we have today, Simi Jerez, our planner, senior planner. And I'm not sure if anybody else is here from MIN, but we also have our senior clerk, Mr. Peter Prinsloo. Councillor Sharma, would you move the minutes of January 27, 2026?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Moving into delegations. I understand Inspector Hall will be with us today. And are you there, Mr. Hall? Inspector Hall?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I'll just go through the numbers as I usually do, and then a couple points at the end. So good morning. Just for your information, the officers in the North District took 3,600 calls for the month of January, which is a little higher than usual. Our community support unit dealt with 707 of those calls, and 29 of the arrests we made were individuals who were wanted on warrants. As well, obviously, January, there's a little bit of a hangover with community engagements. There's not a lot going on in a community where police are attending, so we had about 15 hours of community engagement during that month. Total spats where officers are exiting cars and engaging in the community was just over 200 hours. 753 traffic events by our traffic unit where individuals are engaging in the community, likely to write speeding tickets. And then we had 63 events, traffic events where our officers attended for complaints at schools or obviously counselors here with some issues in the community. So 63 events there. Total proactive time spent in the community by our officers was 560 hours, which is actually pretty good. I'll also say that for the year of 2025, we had 3,972 arrests, which is about a 13% increase from the year before, which is good. I do like to see a little more arrests going on. Hopefully crime comes down. I will add one other stat here for the 2025 year. We have a decrease in property crime of 16%. Keep in mind that's a reported decrease. So I'm wondering if some people just aren't reporting crime, but we do have a decrease in property crime, which is good. Violent crime went down 4% for last year as well. One other thing I'll say is for the month of January, obviously a slower month, but 68% of the calls we attended were of urgent or emergency events in District 3. Usually it's in a 75 to 78%, so it's a little lower. I will say though, for the month of February, I'm seeing an increase in crime, property crime, break and enters. We're going up a little bit as well. I'm noticing firearm offenses in the last 2.5 to 3 weeks went up substantially, and we've been dealing with that. To be expected, but we'll try and get a handle on everything. That's really it. That's a Cole's notes from the month of January. Pending any questions from council.
Councillors? Councillor
I do have one question. Without getting too much into the weeds and giving out too much details, I believe last year in fall, there were a couple of arrests with regards to boosting and fencing around some of the community centers. Just wondering, and I was worried that it may move from one area to another area. Are you able to talk about like how it's affecting your district with the boosting and fencing?
Yeah, so I do remember speaking to you about this actually in the summer. We did have a couple issues. We sent officers in to deal with it in I believe it was around one of the community halls. And then we engaged our property crime unit who ran some projects. I can tell you right now, after the summer, I really haven't heard too much about it. Like once winter hit, it seems to have really slowed down in that regard. I'm not saying it's not going on. Obviously, fencing always happens and theft always occurs, but that overt sort of in your face, the sale of stolen merchandise and the fencing that was going on after the property crimes unit dealt with it and you brought it to our attention. I haven't seen a lot of it or heard of a lot of it in the North District right now. Obviously, you might get more information on that. So if you do, please call and let me know. But since our conversation, I haven't really, I haven't been alerted to it.
Yeah, I was just worried that it would have been moving along, like they would have gone to other areas of the city, but if you haven't been seeing.
Yeah, no, I know arrests were made. So the incident that we were talking about, I know we sent undercover officers in there and made some arrests and then dealt with the individuals on the board, had some conversations, and it seems to have stopped with that one particular community group.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have any questions, Councillor Sherman?
Not at this time, thank you.
I have just a couple of questions. In the 700s in terms of traffic stops, and of those 700, I'd imagine the 53 incidents about enforcement around schools in which you can park or any or do is that kind of high for a January?
I think it is a little high, but we did have some complaints. A couple came from the counselors, and then we had some complaints coming from people in the community about school zones and speeding through school zones.
Yeah.
And some of the enforcement. So our we have two officers right now that deal with that. And we just really, I mean, given it was January and a little slower, we just spent more time in that area, really focusing on the traffic. So more tickets were issued for that, for the school zones, and then just general traffic enforcement in general.
Just generally, I'm wondering, I had heard about extortion activities happening in the Selkirk Avenue Biz area there and stuff, and just wondering, a lot of us small business owners are afraid, but when it was announced the arrests were made, have you been receiving any more like calls from people who are in that kind of predicament?
So I can tell you probably over the last 2 weeks, I've heard nothing more about the extortions that were going on. We did have, at the end of last year, so December, we had a series of them going on in the North District with some of the corner stores. Our officers were involved with that to a certain extent, the preliminary investigation, and that was turned over to major crimes. And they made a series of arrests, as I'm sure you've heard. I think it was this week, a couple of days ago, they announced some funding for that type of investigation. So any other information we get about that or any other issues we have in the North District, we'll go right to the major crime unit and they'll be dealing with it right away. But I can tell you over the last probably 2 to 3 weeks, there hasn't been any complaints come my way in relation to the extortion issues.
Thank you very much, Inspector.
One question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
go ahead, Councillor.
Just came to me. Inspector Hall, thanks for being here as always. Just wondering about the new police station, how construction's going and when can we expect in the coming months it would be open? I'm sure we're sort of finalizing that plan.
We are literally waiting to open. We're just waiting right now for safety glass or bulletproof glass to be put up at the front of the station for the station duty officers. As soon as that's put up, we're open. Everything else is ready to go. We're just waiting for that one installation. So I'm dealing with the city of Winnipeg, as you know, so things do take time. It was supposed to be open already, and the glass hasn't been put in yet. So as soon as it's put in, and that could be next week or the week after, it could be a month or two, but as soon as it's put in, we're open, we're ready to go. So
Thank you. Well, we look forward to coming for a tour, correct?
yeah, you're invited anytime. Let me know.
And many residents, as we all know, they appreciate the online reporting and on the phone, but the in-person is something they're still looking for.
Yeah.
100%. You know, we get people here every day, multiple people here at the front door trying to make reports. So it is something that needs to happen. I agree.
Right on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Inspector. Have a great rest of the day and hear from me in a month or so. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairperson, we have a couple of delegates who are just next door at Assiniboia right now, finishing up an item there.
Okay.
So we can come back to them later. In the meantime, we have Tat Liang Fabio Chin, registered on report 4, which is plan approval 1870 Burroughs Avenue. I believe Tat is in the Zoom meeting, so Tat, if you are there, please go ahead and unmute your microphone, start your video, and we'll put 5 minutes on the clock for you. Thank you.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Can you see me?
No.
Okay, I see I got start the video feature.
We are seeing a gray screen with a camera.
How's this? You see a building?
No. Almost.
Almost.
Yes, we see it now.
No
Yeah,
problem.
okay, this is a bit of a delay. So again, thank you, councilors Edie, Santos, and Sharma.
Tad, if you can
Oh,
just
yeah.
perhaps up your volume, that'd be great.
Oh, okay, increase it?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's figure all that out here.
Mr. Chair, I see
Yes,
that the
I'm
other
sorry.
delegates are here, so they're on the same item. I don't know if they want to present first, because they generally do the whole thing.
Okay, wait, up to you. How you want to proceed?
And typically they run us through the overview.
Counselor, actually, they're here on report 3 and Tad is here on report 4.
Yes, so
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Working
We're gonna
together
go
on
with
other
that.
things together.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me? How is the sound working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So again, thank you for allowing us to present. We're very excited to present a reinvigoration of really a closed grocery store building, which is on the Burroughs location, Burroughs Street. It originally was designed as an IGA grocery store, then became a Sobeys grocery store, and unfortunately, just due to business decision, was not able to be open for probably almost 10 years now. So we're happy to bring it back and reinvigorate the community for the project. I'm showing you currently the exterior of the building as it stands right now. And basically, it's going to be refreshed, no pun intended, as a Freshco grocery store. So the grocery store use will come back as an anchor tenant to this overall development of the project. And on my screen right now is the site plan of the building. So really, there's no building addition. It's entirely an interior renovation of the project. And through discussion with Councilor Santos, we decided to improve the exterior, called the public space, by adding 2 picnic tables. There's currently an existing picnic table outside of the premises that allows staff and also for patrons to have lunch. So we've added a couple more picnic tables to the outside. There is currently some existing landscaping in that location to give them a little bit of privacy. There's existing bicycle racks as well. So the only change was adding some cart corrals shown in the white X that you see. But regardless, with the cart corrals, the parking count is exceeded. So there's no parking issue for the project. The building exterior is purely rebranding of the outside. So with the Freshco branded colors, with the neutral gray tones and the green accents, which is typical of the brand. And other than that, we've improved to Councilor Santos' request the north elevation to improve the looks on that side by adding some of the visual food signage. Yes.
I'm not seeing your presentation, just the Google Maps of the building. So I don't know if
Oh,
you're through
okay.
an actual.
That's interesting. Thank you for telling me. The share says I'm still sharing. Maybe I'll just, I will remove the Google view from the screen. And I'll put back up the site plan. And I'll reshare. my screen, just give me a second. And please advise me if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can now see
The site plan?
the site plan, yeah, and we have paused your time, so you can continue on.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So again, here's the site plan for the building. And as I mentioned, there's no building addition. It's purely an interior renovation. The only thing that was added were cart corrals. Those are the white X's, the white boxes that I'm circling with my mouse. But even regardless of the cart corrals being added, the parking count is exceeded. There's no parking variance required. The two picnic tables that I verbally discussed, I'm circling with my mouse right now. So Councilor Santos suggested we improve the public area with a little more seating for lunches and break time. So 2 more picnic tables are added as I'm circling. We go back to the building. As I mentioned, the building is basically just mainly repainted with some new signage to suit the Fresco branding for the overall building. So it's the typical Fresco branding with the neutral gray tones with the green accents. The repainting improves some parts of the building that require some repainting in the appearance. There's some repainting of the bollards, new sleeves that are added to the bollards in the front. And we added an image for the grocery store here as well on the north elevation to improve that corner of the building. So you can see that here as I'm circling. And if we go to the floor plan. So the basic use is a grocery store as it always has been. You enter the building through this entrance over here, cart corral is on the left. And as you maneuver through the grocery store, there'll be fresh produce, bakery, and then in the back is typically refrigerated goods with meat coolers, produce coolers, and dairy coolers. And the center is always typically dry goods in the middle. Those are the basic uses of the interior. And the mezzanine is simply a refresh of the existing offices. And besides that, you may be asking later about construction. So we're anticipating construction start April 23rd to start, with completion second week of August and grand opening first week of September. Fresco will generate about 86 new jobs on this property. And we've read through the planner's report as submitted and accept the recommendations. That's it for my presentation. I'm open for any questions now or later.
Yeah, questions? Thank you, Tat. Can you go back to the floor plan? There was definitely some concerns with, people saying that, stolen goods, because we are seeing quite an uptick in issues with safety and security inside grocery stores. Were you guys able to change or modify the entrance? Because we've seen that in other grocery stores. We've had to improve the flow of people going in and out. Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. They try and make it as we can appreciate as open as possible, but reducing shrinkage through theft, which I agree is always a big concern of retailers in the grocery store business. So they always have their gates that they enter through when they first enter into the floor plan, and there's the typical security gate. So they put that in. And when people are basically shopping and make their way out, they're really going one way only. They can't go back out where they enter. They've got to go out and do call it the clockwise circle. And after they pay for their goods, they'll be coming through the checkouts, and then they have security sensors right beside where the exit is. What they find to be more of an issue is really the hidden parts. So people sometimes will take the goods, unfortunately. They'll go to the back of the building where the warehouse is, and they'll go to one of the outside doors. I'm trying to move my screen over a little bit here, but I can pan, that also works. So the warehouse is typically where a lot of the stolen goods occur. So we've added mag lock doors. And so they basically are locked for a maximum of 15 seconds. When they're pushed with the panic bar, there's a local screamer that will alarm up, allowing people within the office to run to that location and hopefully stop the person from running out. By code, we can't have more than 15 seconds, but the 15-second delay at least helps to delay people if they're trying to hide the goods and trying to make a back exit.
Then, one more, concern some of the, residences who live along Dorset in the Tyndall Park kind of co-op housing, the Willow Park Housing Co-op, just across the street in the back. Their big concern was access and walkability. Needless to say, I think we had touched lightly on it. Could you explain a little bit on maybe the access to Dorset? I believe there's some sidewalks. And how are they gonna be able to go back and forth?
Yeah, that will keep it as existing. So maybe I think what I'll do is I'll try to bring up the Google because that helps to show more of the existing context. I may have to reshare my screen, so let me pop it. I'll pop it back up again here. And I'll probably reshare my screen, but just give me a second, please.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, let me know if you can see my screen with the Google use. That's working? Okay, thank you. So there is a pathway. Basically, Sobeys is maintaining the existing pathways that are there on site right now. You can see on my screen, there's a sidewalk connection from Dorset that comes onto the property for shopping purpose. So that's the current location. The other would be the existing sidewalk. That's adjacent to the Main Street Burroughs Avenue. So people would be using that sidewalk as well to walk up the sidewalk and up to the front entrance of the building. So it'll be a combination of the Burroughs access as well as Dorset. Dorset also has another secondary sidewalk connection where I'm circling over here as well. So those are the two access. They're being maintained.
So do you know, Tad, who would be responsible for clearing those two specific sidewalks? Because I know the one along Burroughs would be city services, but it seems like the one along Dorset is more private operating. Would that be Sobeys or the property?
I think that's the landlord, the property, yeah, that's the property landlord. Sobeys is acting as a tenant here. The property landlord would require to maintain those sidewalks that I'm circling here.
Carmen, did you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Tat. You shared the construction timeline. That's good. That's right around the corner. Wow. That's gonna.
Soon, it's soon,
Yeah.
yes.
I've got a question around windows. We know the front of the building faces Keewatin, right? Faces the business
Yes,
parking lot and then Keewatin. So what I've
yes.
seen in other locations for these type of grocery stores are windows on the side. Like, what about windows? Did you explore windows on the side on Burroughs?
We were requesting, Vivian, if you recall, we had that meeting. I'm gonna share hopefully, can you see my screen again? I went to the floor plan.
They're not skylight, but higher windows. Have you explored that on the Burroughs side?
Yeah, we did. First of all, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so with Councillor Santos, we had a meeting with herself and the Sobeys delegate Jasmine for the project. And we were looking at seeing what we can do on this. To the left of my screen will be the north elevation of the building. And so here is where we looked, can we do something on that side of the building? Functionally, this one corner are cart corrals. And because of the cart corrals, you would just see cart corrals. So that's where we added some imagery here to address that corner, to improve that corner where it faces the Keewatin Street. The rest of the building, in terms of the interior, they have racking and really decor that go all the way up to it's an acoustic ceiling tile building. So these are the buildings that are exposed deck with a hired ceiling that are exposed all the way up to the deck. It's a lower ceiling with acoustic ceilings. Also, there was no opportunity for clear-story windows here due to the racking. So what we could do is at least improve this one corner that faces Keewatin, just to improve the corner when you're turning the building. And the front of the building, that part has good glazing. And that's, it's all boarded up currently, but that'll be reopened back up to have the transparency. And the one corner is the only place that we could really add some imagery to improve the appearance.
So that imagery, is it glazing or just imagery?
No, it's imagery, so it's a panel, because right behind it, as I mentioned, functionally, they're cart corrals, so we saw no point in exposing the cart corrals behind. So it's imagery relating to the grocery store itself that at least helps to improve the appearance.
Well, that looks
Never
nice.
mind.
That looks nice. Now to the left of it, because there is a store, did you design the store on Pembina Highway or any of the south end? Because they do have windows higher up at those locations.
It could be, we're not sure about those ones, Counselor. I know here specifically, it's if I kind of use my mouse to highlight, we don't have exposed metal deck, which offers you probably 5 more feet. This is an acoustic ceiling tile building where all of the ceiling is at a lower height. So we don't have, the ceiling's much lower than probably those other buildings. So because of the ceiling height in this building, there was no room to add the clear stories above.
Right. Just one other question, the parking spaces, how wide?
Yes.
How wide are they, and are you going with what's existing there, or are you? changing-
Yeah, basic,
changing
correct,
what?
Counselor. We just kept it, everything's painted, everything's existing, so we didn't change it. We're not altering the building or addition, so it's existing parking stalls.
Because the Freshco on McPhillips has large parking, stalls, right? So are they similar to that location, smaller, bigger?
They probably be comparable. We did check the count, so the parking count works as well as you can see if I'm circling here, there's 8 barrier-free parking stalls that also complies or exceeds the bylaw. So it appears that it achieves for sure the zoning bylaw requirements in terms of the quantity and the sizing.
Oh, some of the parking stalls have those double lines around them. Are you familiar with that?
I've seen those before at Costco's. It looks like that sometimes certain type of retailers do that. I've
Well,
seen them, yes,
I think you're at Freshco on McPhillips. Are you?
yeah.
in That plan, do you know that plan? Because they work well there and people tend to buy a lot at, grocers like Freshco. And they're,
Mhm.
they're hauling out the cart, there's lots of goods, so what width are these stalls here?
But we never site measured them, Counselor, we just kept them as existing stalls. They could be restriped, I don't know, but currently there was no scope of work to change any of the existing parking stall configuration.
On for plan approval, we're looking at all of that, right? The trees on the site, the parking, everything's included. So, I wanna know, I think you're 9 feet, but what do you think? You know?
They would have to be site measured, Counselor, I wouldn't want to say something incorrect. I know they met the zoning bylaw count,
Okay.
but I don't know the dimension, I can't comment on the dimensions.
And I'm asking Tat because there was another plaza in the area, in our wards, and they started off with a certain size parking stall, and guess what? Later on, they had to repaint the lines a few years later because they were finding it really wasn't working. And that's why something like this becomes important to me, and I think to others. Because you have a lot of parking, and you say you exceed the parking, correct?
Yeah, not by much. If you look at my count, I'm gonna zoom in. So the required is 126 parking stalls
Yeah.
and 131 are provided. So there's 5 additional parking stalls, more than the zoning count.
It's just nice to have those wider stalls right at the front of the store where people are really trying to in and out. Just curious about that,
You-
so definitely.
You know
wanna-
what we could do, if I can suggest?
I warrant that you're coming forward in April, I wanna know that answer, please, about.
Yeah, one thing I can suggest is, what I can let Sobeys know is if there's opportunity for some of the front stalls to be a little bit wider along the main front path of the building
Yeah,
and not decrease the count less than 126, which I'm circling right here, right now. If you're okay with that, I can ask Sobeys to see if they're okay to reduce the count a bit or to improve the width of the stalls, because that would have to be site measured first to see where they could.
I think she knows the value of good parking as well. I see her nodding. So yeah, that's a minor change anyways after, because you probably have to freshen up the lines, right? And.
Yeah, usually, I think sometimes their maintenance department takes care of the line paintings, but it's something. Yeah, we'd have to check with who would be doing the repainting, but we can check with them if they're open to improving the width and not, as long as they're not lower than the count of 126. Again, there's a 5 count buffer that we have currently. So I can definitely let Sobeys know that was a request and if they can improve the width to do that.
They should look at their store on Freshco, see how it's on McPhillips, see how it's performing in terms of the parking. It seems fine to me and I'm there quite a bit. So
Yeah.
a good baseline measure. What about trees? Are you adding anything? You may have said.
We're
missed it.
no, it's everything's kept as existing for the trees.
Hold on,
There's
hold
some
on.
trees mainly here.
Or at the back, is there any need to add anything while you're there?
No, we don't think so. We think the one thing that we did with Councilor Santos, which is we're improving the seating in the front area. So these are the two additional picnic tables along the front. Compared, the one grayed out one is what's currently there, which I'm gonna pan back down on the right. Here's the existing picnic table in that area. And so we are adding a couple more picnic tables that improves people's ability to have lunch or get outdoors when it's a bit nicer.
The borough side, how many trees are there on the side of the building?
What I heard was muffled for some reason. If you could repeat that, please.
How many trees are on the side of the building where Burroughs is?
Yeah, for that, let me pull this up here. So let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this one will show the existing trees around the building, including, right now we're on Burroughs, facing the Burroughs location. And if I pan around, this will face Dorset on the back of the building. And then this front area here is where a bit of landscaping is with some trees and the picnic table. So yeah, there's no plan to add more trees, but these are the existing trees.
So there's nothing that needs replanting?
No, there's no proposed additional landscape planting. We thought by adding the additional picnic tables, it just improved the public's access to have lunch better. So that's what Sobeys had offered as part of his discussion with Councilor Santos.
What about this signage? That pylon sign, what kind of shape is it?
Yeah, it's a bit beat. So I'm gonna go back to my notes. It will be repainted. There's some dent, there's a little bit of repair work. You can see a little bit down here at the base, typically where it's rusting or it can get hit. So they're basically gonna be repairing and repainting that sign and changing the sign graphic as well.
Important question. Where are your accessible parking stalls located? Did you create any along that pathway, walkway?
Currently, it's being kept at the front entrance of the building where most people would be parking to enter the front entrance. So I've got the site plan back up. I'm gonna circle the front entrance with my mouse over here, and directly in front of the front entrance are the existing barrier-free parking stalls that total 8. So they're being kept where they are currently, very close to the front entrance.
Those the style that'll allow for side unloading and loading, or is it just?
Yeah, with the width, it should be able to accommodate the side as well. We just kept what was there as existing.
Okay. Any further questions, Colin? Nope. Okay, well, thanks for your presentation. We'll probably end up dealing with this plan approval after we're done with our hearings today, so.
Okay.
Presentation, are is Brendan?
Yes, there. So, first up, Carolina Herrera Garza, to be heard in support of plan approval at 2777 McPhillips Street, Building D, CRU 4, which is report 3 on our agenda today. She's being joined by Brendan Salico.
And I am here with my colleague Brandon Salaco. We would like to thank the committee and administration for the opportunity to present this morning about our fund approval application for changes to CRU for at Polaris Place. Wyland Real Estate is the owner of the site. Senior Architect has designed the commercial site plan and building, and we're running planning design, we're leading the planning, engagement, and development approval process. The subject site is approximately 6.75 acres in the area. Commercial development has been approved for these lots. 2 buildings have already been constructed. Third one is already under construction, I believe. Here you can see the images at the top of the slide show the progress of the construction, including Wyland's new office, one of the completed buildings. The current fund approval application is specifically to accommodate a few minor changes to CRU4 and to the previously proposed financial institution. This is located at the northeast corner of Village Street and North Point Boulevard. This site falls within the North Point Village precinct plan area and identifies the specific lots within the commercial policy area. I'm not going to get into the details, but the proposed changes are consistent with the policies for this site. Regarding stakeholder engagement, we conducted 4 rounds of engagement between 2021 and 2023 for the overall master plan, which also includes the residential area and the commercial component. Now, getting into the site plan, we included this just for reference. This is the previously approved site plan, just so you can see where the financial institution and CRU4 buildings were located at the southwest corner of the site. And now, here you can see the new site plan with the proposed change, which include removing the future financial institution building, increasing CRU4 from 120 feet long to 204 feet long, modifying CRU4 shape to accommodate easement requirements along North Point Boulevard. These resulting in a change from a rectangular shape to a footprint with 1 recessed corner. Adjusting sidewalk connections on both sides of the building, so they are directly connected to the sidewalk along North Point Boulevard. Modifying the landscaping to accommodate the above changes and display the parking area. And increasing CRU4 parking by 14 parking spaces from the last approved plan approval. So with these changes, the master plan will now have a total of 5 buildings and 289 parking spaces. These are the CRU4 proposed elevations, all of them showing a building height of approximately 22 feet. As you can see, the facade design is intended to keep a similar aesthetic to the original design previously approved for the site. The building is extended with solid red panels that contrast with dark gray brickwork around the corners and the base of the building. And for the other walls, the smooth finish is applied in off-white, light gray, and dark gray colors, creating a mosaic look that adds rhythm and visual interest to the building. So the first one is the main elevation with all the signage, and then the other one is the rear elevation, and these are the elevation. Regarding landscaping, as I mentioned before, sidewalk connections and seating areas have been relocated and adjusted to maintain direct connection from CRU4 to the sidewalk along North Point Boulevard. And the landscaping has been designed and adjusted to meet city requirements for plantings and trees for this site and as not to trigger any variance. Now these renderings I'm going to show here are just for reference. These are showing the previously approved concept, but we thought they will be helpful to show you the more visually the building and the changes. So this is a view from North Point Boulevard, and here we're seeing CRU4 in front. So what we're proposing is to extend it further west. And then in this overview, we're also looking at CRU4, but from the interior of the parking lot. And here we can see to the right, that was the previously proposed financial institution, which would be removed. So CRU4 can be extended to the right, which is towards Village Street. So in summary, we feel that this is a good proposal for the Polaris Plaza. It adheres to the objectives and policies of the city, is compatible with the area, and responds to adjacent properties through design and landscaping features, optimizes the site for current commercial needs, which is the reason of these changes, improve the visual character of the site, offering a cleaner, more open streetscape, and it visually enhances the yard along the village. So with these, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Counselors, questions?
Sure, thank you. Carolina, Brendan, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the collaboration with my office and with our planner. I know we have on all files, right? Over time, so I do appreciate that dialogue. Just looking at the proposed site plan. So it's CRU 4 that we're approving today. The future CRU 3, are you gonna come forward at a later date for that? Because it is being changed, right, from what it was previously more of a similar to the other CRUs, just long and rectangle. Now it's got a different configuration, right?
Yeah.
To come forward later.
We'll be back again.
And that particular one is a 2-story, is it?
That I'm not too sure about currently, but they'll probably be deciding that, I would think, in the next 6 months or so.
Sure thing. Yeah, this looks good. And is there any fencing that's gonna go up on North Point Boulevard? It doesn't look like it. There's not a need. No, there's trees.
Trees,
and
landscaping,
greenery, yeah.
shrubs, yeah.
And we've got the pedestrian connections coming from North Point Boulevard into the site. Do you know where the bus stop is in relation to that, or is it nearby? We possibly a new bus stop coming as well. We're having some dialogue with the city on that.
That's right.
So there's 2 ways in really, at the top there where the city notice.
That's right. And yeah, and then there's also basically around that CRU 3, there'll also be a connection from the internal private north-south road to be able to come in from the south, from the west, from the east, and from the north.
Very good. There's not a lot of windows at the back. I guess you're following the same pattern as the other buildings that were approved, correct?
That's right.
Okay. What I would like to see for the next one, it may be a 2-story, it might be a single story. I'm thinking it might be a 2-story from discussions that I recall. And the first CRU that went up where Pristine Dental and the Whiteland office is, it looks quite spectacular with a lot of windows. So maybe we can point out that that's possibly the look we're striving for that next CRU. Because if it is 2-story, it's sort of anchoring the site as you come into that private road. And maybe that's something, if you can keep that in mind, please. Yeah, but the configuration that you have looks good, makes sense to me. So I do intend on moving approval later in the meeting. I do want to note, and we've had these discussions before, tenants, in terms of putting graphics on the windows. I think we need to pay attention to that again, because sometimes they're covered up way too much, almost 100% for some of them are 80. And I think the point of windows is to see into the space, create a welcoming environment to come in and shop somewhere, right? And the curb appeal is certainly enhanced when there's less window graphics. I mean, you've got signage, maybe some window graphics, so that should be tastefully done. So I'd like to underscore that point again, because I'm seeing on Jamaica Street and other places throughout the city in the south end, and Margore included, way too many graphics on windows. And it's ruining the curb appeal in some cases. It's overdone. So if you could take that back to your team, that would be appreciated. It's not bad in this area, but there are some tenants that I think have stretched it a little bit.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's in their lease. We've certainly put the comments on the record. We'll take that back.
For sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, we talk about public realm and just kind of being inviting. We do want to see that, those open windows, people can see inside, people inside can see outside. I think it creates that curb appeal or that kind of nicer edge between the buildings and the public or private space.
Very good, thank you. It's a well-utilized commercial plaza. There's a lot of good shops in there, restaurants and medical offices, etc. So it's good to see the next CRU coming up to serve the information. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Chair, back to you for any questions.
Okay, actually, Counselor Santos, did you have?
Good, yep.
I just want to look at
Okay.
And are you, is there a particular reason the financial institution building was, deleted?
Yeah, I think they might have had trouble finding a potential tenant for it, so just responding to kind of market demand. And like you said, there's been a lot of interest, I think, in the area from kind of smaller, the restaurants, some of the local shops and that. So they saw an opportunity there to include more tenants.
Thank you. And what tenants, can we see in this space? Or do you know, or can you share that yet?
No, not quite yet. We're not even sure at this point, but we do know that Whiteland has had a lot of interest from a lot of local and then I believe some larger chains as well. So we're excited to see what will be in there as well.
Excellent. It's looking good. It's well done, the plaza. We're excited about the Tim Hortons opening soon.
Great.
Hopefully that queuing line works the way we set it up to.
Yep.
And, folks are walking to the area to buy their coffee and buy their samosas and their groceries or whatever they're getting, so. It's really interesting how quickly this, got constructed. Continues to grow, so thank you for your efforts, working with the planner and my office, I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Great. Right, there's no more delegation.
Nope, that concludes our delegations.
That concludes delegations. Okay, so let's move into some reports then, colleagues. First up, we have the report on the semi-annual report on per capita land dedication and community incentive grants. I just wanted to introduce this. The people who, and the the organizations receiving monies through these programs that are at the discretion of the city councilors, the delegated authority does speed up the process to a certain degree. And this report is just to be open, transparent about where grants are being applied and provided to. So it's just to receive as information.
Mr. Chair, to receive the semi-annual summary of delegated authority to work per capita, land education, and incentive grants. For
Great.
information.
All those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 2. Not there. Report number 2.
Number 2 is extension of time subdivision and rezoning at 1065 and 1069 Notre Dame Avenue. And we do have Mr. Blaine Martinson here to speak to the item.
Yeah. Just a quick summary.
Yes.
Sorry, my first meeting here.
Yeah.
Basically, essentially, this application is ready to go. We're, there's no outstanding conditions. They just ran up against the expiry date. And so we wanted to get the extension in place before we release their Mylars. There's 2 registered subdivisions. If this extension is granted, they will be ready to proceed with the subdivision and rezoning.
So there's
Nothing outstanding.
nothing really slowing it down.
Nothing at all. It's ready to go.
I'll move the extension of time request.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 3, plan approval. 1870? Yes. Or, well, you want to speak to it, Ms. Ferris?
Councilors, would you like a summary? Yes, maybe a high-level summary for the public record, please.
I'm sorry to clarify, are we speaking about 277? Okay, thank you. This is a plan approval to revise plans for commercial building D, also known as CRU4. This was previously approved in 2022 by this committee, when plans were approved for the development of all 6 commercial buildings clustered around a parking lot having a total of 271 parking spaces. All of the buildings would have primary entrances oriented towards that accessory parking area in the center of the planned development. Previously in those plans, a financial institution was shown at the corner of Phillips and Northpoint Boulevard. And then commercial building D extended from the financial institution eastward. So the plans have been revised to remove the building previously delegated for or designated for a financial institution and add some of that length to commercial building D. So the shape of the building has been modified, recessing the southwest corner to accommodate easement requirements and also reduce that bulky massing a little bit. And proposed elevations are in keeping with the previously approved design. The building would be accented with, it'll be clad with various shades of white and gray EVIS panels with accents of red metallic panels and dark gray brickwork. Oh, pardon me, I wanted to note also by removing the financial institution, it creates some efficiency of space on site, allows for additional landscaping in the seating area at the west corner of the building, and provides 14 additional parking spaces. Pathway connections and landscaping have been modified to accommodate those changes. And the report recommendations approval.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend approval of the plans as submitted. It's really exciting, as I mentioned earlier, that we see this commercial area expanding. There's restaurants, medical offices, grocery stores there already. And the Aurora neighborhood is just about fully built out, and the surrounding community of Highland Point and Garden City and Ambergate are ensuring this new plaza. It's very exciting to see it expanding. And what's been shown to us is nicely scaled buildings, pleasant pathways, seating areas, and the street edge landscaping also looks very good. So I'm pleased to move approval as submitted, and I want to thank Landmark Planning for all of their work on the design.
Excellent.
And pardon me, and the architect firm, Tat, has been working on this file in collaboration with Landmark, so appreciate their efforts.
Yes. You've been working along quite well. Okay, so it's moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 4, I guess we could deal with it. That is plan approval 1870 Burroughs Avenue. This, Chris?
Thank you. This is a plan approval application for proposed renovations to an existing grocery store with very few site changes. The site's located on the north side, south side of Burroughs Street on the west side of Keewatin Street in the Burroughs Keewatin neighborhood of the Point Douglas Board. The applicant is proposing to update exterior cladding materials, the freestanding signage panels and fascia signage on the existing building. The existing brick cladding will be painted in a white gray palette with light green accents. The applicant is adding new picnic tables near the existing tables at the southwest corner of the building. And site conditions are generally remaining unchanged. So we recommended approval of these plans.
Any questions?
I'd like to go ahead and support the plan approval for 1870 Burroughs Avenue. Just very excited for having the grocery store coming back in the Temple Park community. I think we're going to be the presenter. It's remained empty for 10 years, and I'm happy to see that there's been collaboration between the owners of the building, Shindeco and Sobeys, to bring a grocery store under the franchise Franco. Will provide different products and produce, and looking forward to seeing it open later on this year. So happy to support it.
Excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We're gonna adjourn now till, what do we call the meeting? 10?
We have to start the public hearing before 11. It's now 10:33.
It's 10:30, so 15-minute break. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lord Selkirk West Kildonan Community Committee back to order. We'll be dealing with hearings regarding a Point Douglas secondary plan. We're meeting here on Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakotas peoples, and it is also the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. We receive our water from Shoal Lake 40 in Treaty 3 territory. I'm Councillor Ross Eady from the Minorski Ward, and I'll be chairing the hearings today. With me, we have my colleagues, Councillor Santos from the Point Douglas Ward, and we have Councillor Sharma from the Old Kildonan Ward. From the administration at the table here, we have Ms. Ingram and we have Mr. Kostrad to talk about provide us, and we can ask them questions regarding the secondary plan. And we have the most esteemed Mr. Peter Prinsloo, our senior clerk. And I think it's time to pass it on to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is a secondary plan amendment for the Point Douglas neighborhood under file SP 1 of 2026. So at this time, we can hand it over to our planning department to give us an overview on the matter.
Thank you, councillors. So my name is Anya Ingram. I'm a planner in the long range group of the Urban Planning and Design Division. I will be providing a brief overview of this application, but more detail will be presented by the applicant shortly. So this application is for the adoption of the Point Douglas Neighborhood Plan as a secondary plan bylaw to guide future development in Point Douglas. The plan area includes the area south of the rail line, east of the Disraeli Freeway. North of the rail line, the plan area includes all properties south of Redwood Avenue and east of Main Street, excluding those lots that front onto Main Street itself, all the way towards the Red River. The need for a secondary plan is driven by a few factors. First, under our Winnipeg 2045 and the Complete Communities Direction Strategy 2.0, North Point Douglas is designated as a mature community within the established neighborhoods policy area. And importantly, South Point Douglas, which is predominantly industrial, is designated as a major redevelopment area C. And as per section C5113 of CCDS 2.0, major redevelopment sites must have a secondary plan. In 2021, Council also approved the Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor route along Sutherland Avenue through Point Douglas and across the new Louise Bridge. Transit stations along Sutherland Avenue are proposed at both Disraeli Street and Higgins Avenue. In addition to the major redevelopment site designation and the approved Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor route, the increasing demand for residential infill in the city's central neighborhoods drives the need for a secondary plan. In 2022, councillors from this committee, Councillor Santos from the Point Douglas Ward and Eady from the Minorski Ward, identified the development of a secondary plan for the Point Douglas neighborhoods as a ward priority to be funded under the Canada Community Building Fund / Economic Recovery Plan. So then on October 27th, 2023, a competitive bid process concluded with the public service selecting a private consulting firm, WSP Canada, as a planning consultant to assist in the preparation of a secondary plan for Point Douglas. The preparation of the plan included two phases of engagement, which will be detailed a bit further by the applicant. Phase 1 took place between April and June of 2024 and informed the first draft. And then in phase 2, to present the draft plan occurred in June 2025. The plan is also supported by a traffic impact study and a conceptual servicing report, both developed throughout the project. The intent of the plan is to build upon the strengths and assets already in Point Douglas. The proposed plan will designate the plan area in accordance with the application, which includes 3 proposed land use policy areas. The plan provides for the development which is appropriate to the context of the existing residential neighborhood. but at the same time, it aims to encourage redevelopment and attract investment to appropriate areas, including some industrial areas. The plan represents the culmination of a comprehensive two-year planning process involving residents, business owners, and community organizations in Point Douglas. The medium high-density residential, commercial, and mixed uses in proximity to the planned Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor are in accordance with our Winnipeg 2045 and the CCDS 2.0. For these reasons, the Public Service recommends approval of the proposed secondary plan. That's it for me.
Any questions, colleagues?
We have an opportunity to ask questions of administration after the delegates, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're okay, go ahead.
Yep, I'm okay with it now.
I just had, maybe one question before we proceed. I mean, it could be asked of the applicant, Mr. Pratt. So the designation so there's part of the secondary plan is, some of the industrial, North Point Douglas really only has it on the south side of Sutherland and a couple other little spots. What would the initial, there's some businesses there that I don't think would be allowed now. What kind of conditions would have to happen in order for a business like have to look at moving to a different place if they don't fall under the zoning and secondary plan?
Should we wait until the applicant has presented the plan as well?
It might help, yeah.
I think it might be a bit more clear for everyone if we let the applicant give their presentation. It's going to give some overview to those points and then we can get into the details of that. Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
excellent. So
You
we
do
have the
have-
applicant,
I just have
Mr.
one quick question, just to clarify, you said during the consultation, there were a couple of studies that were done. You ran by, one was a traffic study and what was the other one?
Conceptual servicing report.
Conceptual servicing report?
Yeah, so it looks at the existing sewers and water, et cetera, and gives some identification of challenges and solutions.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about the community consultation.
The applicant will be providing a review of the two
Of
phases.
how that went.
Yeah, and if you want more details than that, we can always discuss further.
Yeah, we'll ask her. Yeah. All right, then I'll call up the applicant on behalf of the city of Winnipeg, Mr. James Pratt. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm gonna call up our consultant to give our presentation. That's okay.
Okay. Who would that be?
Our consultant in this case, it's been WSP, and with her is our senior planner, Megan Bowles.
Megan Bowles?
Project leader from WSP's perspective during developing this second vision plan. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Meeting, Councilor Karma, Councilor Santos, and members of the Winnipeg Public Service. I'm Megan Bowles, registered professional planner from WSP, here to present on the Point Douglas plan. The planning area is around 150 hectares in area and bounded by Main Street, generally from Redwood to Higgins and the Red River. The city initiated the secondary plan and hired WSP to assist them. North of Sutherland is identified as a mature community, and south of Sutherland is identified as a major redevelopment site in our Winnipeg and community. These maps show the existing zoning and land use in the plan area, with north of Sutherland being substantially residential in nature and south of Sutherland more industrial. This process started in the fall of 2023 and took us into the fall of last year. We moved through stages of the plan, starting with the background study, listening to the community in phase 1 is engagement, creating the draft plan, presenting the plan through phase 2 engagement, and then finalizing the plan based on that feedback. The process included significant public engagement using tools including stakeholder meetings, community gatherings, outreach and pop-ups, and online surveys with interactive mapping. We had a project advisory committee that guided the process, and we met throughout the project with them to ensure that we stayed on track. The goal of the first phase of engagement was to inform about the project and process, invite broad participation, identify issues and opportunities, and obtain feedback that shapes the plan. In phase 2, we presented that draft plan to get feedback, which allowed us to refine and finalize the plan. Through the process, we met with over 40 stakeholders, made many connections with residents and youth, and did interactive engagement. To do this, we collaborated with community partners like North Point Douglas Women's Center, the Community Center, and Graffiti Art Programming, who attended both our community gatherings and provided an art activity, which was a big success. Phase 1 activities included a spring cleanup, Mama Bear Plant Walk, a booth at the Austin Street Festival, community chats with residents and youth, a community gathering in September of 2024, and an online survey with mapping tools and story board. Our focus in this phase was to learn from the community what makes Point Douglas special, what to preserve, and to understand early ideas on land use and mobility. The result of that early engagement and background research was to establish a vision for the plan. The vision focuses on creating a safe, inclusive, and welcoming community for people of all incomes, ages, and abilities. It emphasizes expanding housing choices and amenities, while supporting accessibility or accessible parks, open spaces, community facilities, and strong connections to the borough. The vision also prioritizes safe, convenient walking, cycling, and transit year-round, and encourages transit supportive development, bringing appropriate residential density to the borough. The engagement also allowed us to establish guiding principles for the plan. So each principle reflects repeated themes that we heard from the community through our engagement: reconciliation, sense of place, collaboration, diversity in land uses, growing in place, natural amenities, connected and efficient infrastructure. Working alongside the city, we moved forward with drafting the neighborhood plan, and phase 2 engagement asked for feedback on that draft. A community gathering was held in June of 2025, and additional feedback collected through an online survey. We also partnered with the Point Douglas Women's Center for a workshop and met with stakeholders through group discussions and one-on-one conversations. And that feedback really allowed us to refine and finalize the plan that's before you today. This is the land use policy map that forms the basis of the plan. The land use destinations are infill area in yellow, mid-rise mixed use area in orange, and higher rise mixed use area in purple. The future rapid transit line and future stations are shown in pink. The infill area supports new low-rise residential development that fits the surrounding neighborhood character. Objectives are to maintain this primarily residential area, continuing to allow gentle density through infill, and ensure new development is compatible with the existing context. Predominant uses here will be single, 2-unit, and up to 4-unit multi-residential with a maximum height of 4 stories with some flexibility depending on individual site.
I will move. We need 5 minutes? Yeah. Do the 5 minutes.
Extension, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed, that's carried.
The mid-rise mixed-use area is intended as the social heart of the community with a mix of residential, commercial, public, and recreational uses connected to future rapid transit. The plan really aims to support mixed-use and medium-density housing, creating pedestrian-focused main streets, particularly like along Euclid, encouraging transit-oriented development along Sutherland, and providing those appropriate land use transitions to the adjacent areas. Predominant uses in this orange area will be multi-unit and mixed-use buildings, minimum height of 2 stories and maximum of 6, subject to site design. And policies in this orange area limit industrial uses and guide appropriate commercial use. The higher-rise mixed-use area planned as a transit-supported mixed-income neighborhood that will transition over time from those existing industrial uses. Policies emphasize affordable housing, mixed-use and multi-unit development, and a walkable, transit-oriented urban form. Predominant uses in this area will be multi-unit and mixed-use buildings with a minimum height of 2 stories and maximum of 6. There is some flexibility for taller buildings of 7 to 16 stories in cases where they're in a large lot, like half an acre in size. And subject to site design criteria to minimize impact on surrounding residential properties and public spaces. Expansion or settlement of light and general industrial uses may be permitted in those sub-areas identified as A and B, and shall be permitted in sub-area C. And in all cases must include buffering and mitigation where they are located next to residential. The plan guides the creation of a connected network of parks, open spaces, and a continuous riverfront parkway that supports recreation, ecological health, and community life. Policies focus on where new parks and public spaces should go, encouraging community amenities and programming, improving active transportation and river access, and protecting sensitive riverbank areas. The plan builds on existing and planned city investments, particularly rapid transit, to improve access and support connectivity, and identifies priorities for filling in those gaps in the pedestrian and cycling network. And this includes showing a future active transportation path connecting all around the point, and that's something we heard about consistently throughout our engagement. To balance physical growth with community identity, the plan also provides policy direction recognizing arts, culture, and heritage by supporting public art, Indigenous cultural expression, and the conservation of heritage places. Supportive development by encouraging safe, attractive growth and reinvestment, including the redevelopment of vacant and underutilized parcels. Inclusive economic development by advancing equitable, community-centered, and Indigenous-led economic opportunities. And supporting community facilities by improving accessibility, flexible community spaces, and public amenities to support local. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Santos,
Yeah.
your idea. You got a question.
Both of our ideas. Okay, could you go back to, I'll probably talk more about South Point Douglas. I think I'll leave the comments and questions for North Point Douglas. We can go, yes. So I guess you've heard from the community that some industrial lands are still needed. Can you talk to me about that? Because what we've heard from the community that they don't want industrial anymore. So why are we keeping some areas and not other areas? Maybe kind of walk through that at a.
Sure. So I think the distinction there is sort of the type of industrial. So heavy industrial uses will no longer be permitted to establish in the area. We recognize, partially from what we heard through engagement, but also for employment opportunities in the neighborhood that, there is that need and demand for those lighter and general industrial uses. And so we've worked flexibility for those types of uses in the plan and specifically identified these sub areas in South Point Douglas where in A and B, lighter and general industrial uses may be permitted and the may is subject to specific site design criteria and would depend on what is proposed at the individual site. And in C, we recognize there's some existing uses there that are contributing substantially to the existing community and shall be permitted in that area identified as sub area.
Can you then give me, when you say may be included, what are those criteria that planners at the city of Winnipeg are going to be looking at? Where you may allow light industrial in some area A?
Sure, they would look at the actual use that's proposed and then any adjacent uses to that particular lot. And then there's often site design criteria that can be implemented, whether that be a buffer, landscaping, setbacks, there's a variety of tools, that, you know, a developer might be able to mitigate those impacts, specifically on adjacent residential uses and open space.
Yeah, because there are, oh,
Before we proceed, I'm not looking at a map, right?
Correct.
A is, you got 3 industrial areas.
yeah, can you describe maybe then the boundaries of A, B, and C?
Sure, so, we're talking overall about the area that is south of Sutherland, that's generally industrial in nature. We've identified 3 sub areas in that area, so sub area, A is basically, south of the rail tracks and, sort of extend around the point, to the east. Sub area B is the area sandwiched between south of Sutherland and north of the railway. And sub area C is just sort of a smaller piece that is south of the railway and north of Higgins and east of Annabella.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Santos, go ahead, Ben.
Yes, because there are some residents who do live in sub area A. And so when you say buffers, is it 20 feet, 25 feet? What is that buffer zone? Does it state in the documents or?
I'll speak to that if you like. So for A, the way it's worded in the plan is it may be permitted if it doesn't interfere with the objectives of the policy area. So there's numerous policies. We have some height limitations, et cetera. That's mainly to do with residential to industrial. But typically it's to do with nuisance, noise, and those sorts of things. So the objectives of the plan are to move things, extend Waterfront Drive and eventually evolve Area A into residential commercial. Industrial uses that are in that area that want to exist and continue to exist, they can, but it's just, it would be up to them to prove that they are within the objectives of the plan.
Right, so would that be, so the current industrial uses or the current industrial business that are there, would they be allowed to expand their business as long as they stay within, I guess, this criteria that the planners would be putting on, such as the buffers and the landscaping and the size of the lot?
That is absolutely the intent.
Okay.
We're not interested in running someone out of business.
Okay.
These are jobs. We have to keep inner city jobs. A lot of people who live in Point Douglas work in these places. We don't want to run them out unnecessarily or run them out at all. When it's their time to transition, they'll transition accordingly. At the same time, the investment that they would make in A would be probably would be largely minimal. I don't know that you're going to get a new factory in areas A. You certainly would get that in areas subsection C, where we're encouraging industrial. Again, we need those jobs from them. But for A, the idea is to slowly transition it. So therefore, anything that goes in there would have to be make sure that it could be compatible with any residential use that they do have.
And then, could you give me examples of lighter industrial that would be acceptable?
So generally, within this plan area, we have M1 and M2. M1 is generally light, and then M2 is a little bit more intense. The difference between those can be it amounts to nuisance, as I understand it. I'm sure perhaps the neighbor, Bostic or Simi, can provide a bit more detail on that. The point being is that industries that operate within a building, say a wood shop in a building, you don't know it's a wood shop from the outside. There's no smells, there's no sound, there's no smoke, there's no irritants. That would be considered M1. When you have outdoor storage and you start to get some noise during certain hours, that generally works into M2. So right now, I believe it's M1 is north of the tracks and M2 is south of the tracks. Those are existing industrial uses. We would expect that in sub area A, that any industrial uses that do expand there would be characterized as M1 or light manufacturing, general manufacturing, or sorry, industrial, not manufacturing.
And then in sub B, which is more in Councillor Edie's ward, you've stated that no new industrial will be allowed in that area. Is that correct? No M2, but are we allowing light industrial or no industrial?
Again, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken to the industrial users along there as well as the community. We do have to allow jobs to establish along. So again, the test would be limited outdoor storage, no nuisance, etc. So things that would be characterized as the uses that are existing there today, they're actually in 3 uses. They're heavy industrial uses. Those would not be allowed to expand. They can renovate, but they couldn't expand the size of their operation. They couldn't also establish it. The light manufacturing, the idea is to have a blend of light manufacturing and residential in there. The social enterprise center, for instance, is a great example where they would like to get into some perhaps light manufacturing. You also have uses as you go along Sutherland that would be warehousing and that sort of thing. There's no reason to run those out of business. They should be allowed to exist and other uses could establish. They're friendly to residential uses that could also establish in the area.
And then one final question, Councillor Edie, for enlightening me. The pictures that you're showing on the right-hand side, those are just, I recognize them, like they're in my ward, but how many stories is the top picture in the bottom? That looks like commercial on the first floor, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how many feet is that? How tall is that building?
I believe the one on the top is a 6-story building.
Is that about 100, 110 feet? This is about 100, that's about 100 feet then.
Yeah, and just conceptual imagery of sort of what the plan policy would allow.
And I guess depending on the square footage of the lot, right, would be allowed, and then the square footage of, you would allow up to 16 stories in certain cases, right?
Yeah, so on particular large lots, again, sun shadow study, for example, is one of the policies that would be a requirement to look at, on the specific sites, does that work and fit there, if there's some that have to come up on.
And then, sorry, I do have one more question, Councillor Edie. Are you able to talk about the conceptual servicing report? We've heard some people in the media definitely concerns about servicing the area. It is older infrastructure, my understanding. It is combined sewer overflow. Can you talk about capacity?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Black.
Okay.
Field that question.
Yeah, it'll be handled, capacity is available on a site-by-site basis. We do have water and waste here online to be able to talk to a lot of these specific issues. But on a site-by-site basis, it's not like it would stop any particular site from being developed. There is capacity as to what you would likely be allowed to do on pretty much any lot. There's no real concerns to really be addressed. In the future, as this area is scheduled for eventual sewer renewal, it will be removed in time or off of the combined sewer. Until then, it would be based on a site-by-site basis. The water and waste does have many different ideas and programs and strategies for dealing with it. There's no red flags that we see here.
Are you able to, actually, it might be maybe too soon to ask, I guess because you said site by site, you don't really have an idea of how many units right now that, could you give me a ballpark number of units? Like, are we looking at 10,000 units? Are we looking at 1,000? Do we know those numbers or not really?
Well, the tricky thing is, you know, you turn on a series of faucets, you turn on one, then you have to turn off another one, et cetera. So to say like, how much could you possibly put here? Is tricky because it depends on the strategy you use, so to speak. Are we talking like 1 16-story building that doesn't take up much? I don't know that we're gonna have a series of 16-story buildings. But, you know, that would obviously result in more units if you did it all in 16-story buildings. Would it be able to handle that? There's likely a strategy that could be dealt with to handle stuff like that.
I'll point out that another factor is how they deal with the land drainage related to the building and the property itself as well. Can assist in having more capacity for sewage. It just, there's a lot of factors, right?
Councillor Edie is correct, but I don't want to, I would rather an engineer talk to this, but there are some advantages to Point Douglas that you are right around, it's in the bend of a river. So to put drainage, dealing with drainage issues, most of the drainage issues can be dealt with very easily or with storage on site.
I don't know if you want to ask questions. I do have more, but I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yeah, Councillor, I do have a number of questions. Councillor Sharman, did you have any questions? You're okay? I'll take, I'll ask a couple now. So I've heard of development ideas along Sutherland. When you're talking large enough piece of land, I think that it's like, it's stated to be like M1 on the south side of Sutherland. Does M1 allow for like the same thing as like a mixed use commercial? You could have a mixed use M1, or how would that work?
I would defer the actual, what could be allowed in mixed use to maybe one of the representatives of the official public service rather than myself. They probably have the information right in front of them. But just keep in mind, many of the uses that are along there today are M3 uses. They're heavy industrial uses. They're not characterized as M1.
That's existing, right?
Correct.
There's some lots though that are now empty. When I hear 16 stories, would that be in either A or B or C? Like where?
Yes, the higher order land use designation, expands across A, B, and C. So, as I tried to explain before, that area is everything south of Sutherland, and around the point to just west of the bridge.
Right, so it could happen. So they would have to rezone though from like.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so given the possibility of high density residential, you talked about buffers and stuff, but like, I know in some greenfield, near railways, there's like a buffer zone. So we have a railway going right through the middle of South and North Point Douglas. Well, almost middle. So like if you're locating residential on either side of the CPKC line there, like what happens in those kind of situations where you have like an infill, there's a federal buffer zone thing required for railways? Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. That would be reviewed on a case by case basis, because again, like you mentioned earlier, there would be a rezoning requirement on that.
Through that rezoning process, we would identify what kind of mitigation would go in. Infill's a little bit trickier than greenfield, of course. We do have the FCM and Railway Association of Canada guidelines present kind of a variety of options for mitigation. And that could include setbacks and berming and fencing, or it might be a crash wall if it makes sense. It's on a 16-story building or something like that. So there's a variety of options, and we would look at that on a case-by-case basis at the rezoning stage.
All right, that answers that question. Sort of reviewing up near Redwood, it's kind of institutional. Is that the concept over under the secondary plan? Sort of north of Selkirk Avenue East?
Yeah, so on the south, side of Redwood, that is part of the mid-rise mixed use, area. And so looking there at multi-unit and mixed use residential buildings, minimum 2 stories and maximum of 6.
6. Is that Holy Family just built a independent seniors facility closer to the river? Is that 6 story? How tall is that building? You know?
6.
It's 6.
Thank you.
Sister Ruth said it's 6. In the audience, we have Sister Ruth, who is from Holy Family, and she just piped up and said it's 6.
6, okay.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Little sister. All right, I think, are you ready for more questions? Sure, go ahead.
Maybe could you elaborate on the public engagement and what were sort of the key things that came forward? I'm sure you've addressed a lot of them, certainly can't address everything, but can you, for the public record, go over that, please?
Sure. So we worked really hard with this public engagement to, really sort of like integrate the engagement and sort of bring it to the community in the way that they were able to receive it. I think working with our project advisory committee was a really key piece, that we had representatives from different community organizations, and they really helped to inform the process. And I think in terms of what we heard, and you sort of alluded to this in your question, right? There's lots of layered issues in the community, and this is a land use plan, right? So there are limitations in terms of what it can do. But I think really using these guiding principles that we established through the engagement was sort of a key way that we were able to look at, what we could do over and above just land use policies. And I think the final section in the plan is really where we try to accomplish those. But we really try to recognize that as growth is potentially happening over time, there are some, I guess, softer sort of building community policies that are integrated into the plan that are trying to, respond to, I guess, some of those things that we heard through engagement, like economic development opportunities. Ensuring community facilities are enhanced and improved, and arts, culture, and heritage.
Thank you for that. Would you mind emailing me a copy of the presentation?
Okay, can we talk about, if it's okay, Councillor Edie, about North Point Douglas? I'm interested in the residential area. Not this one, yes, the infill area. Councillor Edie, do you want her to explain the map of the infill area, or are you familiar with the infill area?
I'm familiar, like actually, I would just clarify. So on the north side of Sutherland, there is lots of potential there. On that side, that's what, like along Euclid and I don't know, so it all wraps around what direction, but on the north side of Sutherland, is that like mid-rise? Like what kind of density is in through there? I think there's a lot of R2 in like on streets like Argyle and Stevenson or Lorne or Lusted or.
Yeah, I can maybe try and help with that, Counselor Edie. So, generally the area you just described, sort of north of Sutherland and like moving into just north of Euclid. There's sort of a strip there that is that, mid-rise mixed use area. But then beyond that, as we move, north, and I guess sort of east, sort of towards the river, it's, we're calling it an infill area, the land use designation. And that's really a recognition of that, there's really a strong, existing sort of primarily single unit residential, area there. And so, the policies allow for continuing gentle infill of that area. And, again, really recognizing of that established neighborhood and sort of maintaining that, over time.
Right. So that is that future rapid transit down Sutherland. That's some years down the road.
Yeah.
But so just to confirm, I said it in the media already. Now we have an idea what the land uses could be. This all opens up possibilities for developers to look at assembling some land along, say, the rapid transit corridor and because a lot of those properties are kind of small.
Yeah, it introduces some of those opportunities. And for sure, in some cases, land is definitely for review.
Right, I don't, that's what I was concerned, so there is still the residential, like R1 or single or duplex, whatever, which is a mix in there anyway, is it right now? It is right now. Is there, so some density has built along Austin Street North. So the closer you get to Main Street in North Point Douglas, what kind of land use is proposed like around there?
Yeah, so there is the land use designation for the mid-rise mixed use area, which is sort of like the middle density land use designation, if I can describe it that way in the plan. It does extend up generally along Main Street. So the plan area actually excludes properties that front on Main Street, but then those properties behind them on the west side of Austin Street are designated for that mid-rise mixed use area. And again, it's just a recognition of the influence of Main Street and the development there and making that appropriate transition as you move east in the plan area to that established residential neighborhood.
I don't really have any more questions, Councilors.
Yeah, so recently, we've taken our infill guidelines and have made most of them, all of them now into our bylaw reform, right? Now we have a secondary plan, going back to the infill area. When you said predominant use is single use, 2-unit row, multi up to 4 units. So now with the secondary plan, help me understand, we've got a bylaw reform that talks about 4 units as of right. We talk about, certain areas where those 4 units are allowed to be developed with a certain height restriction. So yes, so how is that going to work with our secondary plan, right? We've heard from communities within that residential area. They don't want to see tall buildings. They don't want to see 4 units as of right. They feel like it's going to be 4 unit stories. Maybe at a very high level, could you tell me how our secondary plan will help with that? Because we do have bylaws right now that say they are as of right.
So just for some context, when we initially started this project, the intention was to take some ideas that we had done with a PDO, a zoning PDO in Glenwood, and do something similar for the residential area in North Point Douglas. As we started the project, we had the HAF project come, and one of their
first acts was to take the Glenwood PDO and modify it slightly, but roll it out to all the mature communities. So essentially, they did the work for us, which was good, I guess. Now, just to characterize this, so this chart on the wall here is that we have displayed here. It tells us like how many units you can get on certain lot widths. So for instance, this is R2. All of North Point Douglas in the residential area is R2. Or I should say a vast majority of it. There are some pockets of M1. But the average lot width the most predominant lot width is 32 feet. So you're pretty limited as to what you can do even under those new rules. So as you can see, to do a side-by-side, if you have a back lane for 2 units, you actually need 40 feet. Otherwise, you're looking at an up and down, like a duplex, up and down duplex on a back lane. I don't believe that this will change the character of the neighborhood. We do have, as you walk through the neighborhood, you do have fourplexes, et cetera, on larger lots. You have sixplexes. It's a real blend in there. However, you would have to assemble land. Also, you'd have to also, well, I guess you're also going to be somewhat limited in certain areas with our Environmental Act license. So what I mean is coming in there to build even if we allowed it, a 6-story building mid-block probably wouldn't even be viable to begin with. So looking at what the new rules are with the PDO that's now been done with half, as you can see on the wall, to have 4 units, you would need a back lane or corner lot with 50-foot frontage. The only place you really have that right now would be on Angus Street, which is already built, close to the Brown and Rutherford site. Those are the only 50-foot lots, consecutive 50-foot lots in the neighborhood. Now, if somebody were to take a bunch and combine them, yeah, they might be able to do some, but again, something a bit bigger, but then again, you're dealing with a lot larger of a lot. So you would have to do some land assembly in order to allow for anything larger, but even still, it'd still be, you'd still have to follow the rules and make sure that you're not, I'd just say, there's setback requirements, et cetera, to keep things within the spirit and the nature of the neighborhood.
Okay, that's good, because we never want to gentrify a neighborhood, right? We don't want, we know there's a lot of character, a lot of heritage in this community, and there was a lot of fear out there that would happen, and seeing this and some of the rules being put in place is good. I think, oh yeah, the traffic study portion. Is this area, is there a requirement for vehicular, like parking? What are the parking ratios? Is there parking ratios or no parking ratios?
Plan's amenable to it, but we're not going to impose it in a plan. We need a PDO to do something like that. But again, there's some work being done on malls and corridors. I think it's one of those things that's best dealt with over time as things transition. As larger projects come in, they'll be required to do a traffic study, in which case we can evaluate what's appropriate at that time moving forward. But again, an area in transition with rapid transit, maybe that will change the modal split. I would expect it would.
I have one follow-up question. Just, I heard Mr. Pratt mention, or somebody, there could, like, an extension of waterfront. Help me out under the master transit plan for the rapid transit. Is there not some sort of proposed alignment of a potential cycling active transportation tunnel from one side of the tracks to the other that aligns with waterfront?
No, you are correct. I think you're talking maybe about there was as part of the Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor project, there was discussion about a pedestrian cycling underpass at Disraeli. So we're not requiring that, but we're assuming that would be part of the neighborhood in the future. So we've included that represented in the plan, but we can't require it. we know that it'll likely happen. And that's quite exciting because it, as you, I guess, alluding to, it brings the buildings that eventually could be established as an extension of Waterfront Drive closer to the rapid transit line. Because you can just easily walk across the tracks or underneath the tracks, as it were, at Disraeli.
You know, so how does that align? Does it align with Argyle or what
It
kind
would
of
be,
alignment from the north side to the south side of the tracks?
because the city owns the right of way at Disraeli, it would be underneath the Disraeli freeway, basically. It's in that right of way. It's a larger right of way. And
Oh.
I believe that it's, would be a small underpass just for pedestrians at that location. Beauty of that, according to the Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor Study, is that there would also be a station, basically at Disraeli and Sutherland, that would allow you to get on a bus going down the Disraeli freeway or somewhere in that location. Or I'm not sure how it exactly works, but the idea that there would be a station right in that location that would allow you to change between one line and the other.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Councilor Sharma, you think? No?
All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
I'm good. I don't have any other questions.
All right, so thanks for the applicants for your presentation. Of course, if there's anybody opposed or anything, we'll hear back from you.
Great, thank you, Councilor.
Okay, next up, we have Mr. Henry Clausen. So Mr. Clausen initially registered in support, but subsequently I have a piece of paper here that says he's for information. So Mr. Clausen, if you'd like to speak in support, now is your opportunity. You can just have a seat over there, please. Yes, please.
The microphone will pick you up, sir. Thank you.
I have nothing in particular to say at this point. I'm here for information primarily. I think I have one question. When are some of these changes going to be implemented?
Well, we'll have our administration answer that question for you. Technically, the hearing body doesn't answer questions, so we'll make sure that it's clear to you what'll happen. But did you hear the discussion regarding the light industrial areas? About there are existing businesses that are an M3, which is a higher level of industrial activity. Did you hear that part of the conversation?
I operate an M1 business. And that seems to be accommodating. What's recently happened is a drive-in needle dispensary has opened across the street from us. I'm not sure what kind of zoning that is.
Well, we'll ask questions of the administration. Sorry, what's your kind of business? I didn't quite hear that.
What?
What business do you run again? Sorry?
Fine line builders.
Oh, okay. And, okay. Anyway, we'll get answers from the administration and you'll be able to hear about it. But you're generally in support of this?
Change the, yes.
And then sorry.
Go ahead.
The question you had posed, I'm just asking for clarification. You're looking for timelines of when the secondary plan will become law? Is that the timeline you're
That's a
looking for?
curiosity.
Okay, you're looking for that. And then, sorry, and you said your business is on Higgins?
Yeah, 37 Higgins.
37.
And as I say, across the street of 34 Higgins.
Okay.
Just opened up a drive-through safe injection site.
Okay.
We have people from there coming into our parking lot, sitting on our steps.
Mhm.
It makes it difficult for clients to come.
Mhm.
And it's also a safety issue for some of the young women that work in that building.
I believe 37 Higgins will be in the area, sub area B, right? You're on the southern side of Higgins, okay.
No, north
North side, you're the north
He's
side.
on the north side.
Okay.
Are you between Annabella and the Louise Bridge?
Yep, right at the corner of Morgan.
Yeah, that's in the Minorski ward.
C, area C, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anyone else registered in support of this application. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support of this application? Seeing none, I don't have anyone registered in opposition. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, then for information, I have Adele Zara. Would you like to speak, sir? All right, he has declined. Next, via Zoom, I have Mr. Mark Coho.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the time. To start, I want to thank the team for having done a good job on public engagements and producing a plan. We're certainly happy to see the strong language encouraging completion of the 18 network connections and for the development of complete streets. And in particular, the mobility objectives, which are section 5, we think are really well defined to promote that sense of a walkable, bikeable, transit-oriented neighborhood. We really feel that Point Douglas has some great potential and that it's really with that central location provides ample opportunity for people to practice car-light lifestyles where walking, biking, and busing provide for their core transportation needs. And that really by promoting that sustainable transportation, those sustainable transportation options, the plan really helped make housing in the neighborhood much more affordable by reducing transportation costs. One concern we do have, and this may relate to what's possible within the plan, is sort of a gap we see in the secondary plan is a lack of guidance and policy regarding secure indoor bike parking requirements as part of the objectives and policy recommendations provided for the development of the mid-rise and higher-rise mixed-use developments. While there is provision given for accessible outdoor and indoor lockable bicycle parking spaces through policies 3.1.2.4, which encourages innovative and flexible solutions to vehicle parking, we really feel that to promote bikeability in the neighborhood and into the adjacent neighborhoods, really firmer requirements for that secure bicycle parking, indoor bicycle parking would be beneficial in the plan. Certainly the presence of secure indoor bike parking we think is a prerequisite to increase the use of cycling as a dependable means of transportation. If people don't feel that their bikes are secure, they're not going to invest in the bikes, and you might end up relying on vehicle use for trips that would have otherwise been, taken by bike. Plan hopes to achieve active and public transportation oriented community that it envisions. We really think it needs to include policies calling for inclusion of secure indoor bike parking in housing so that people will feel that their bikes are safe. So if there's a way to sort of make that more concrete in the plan, we think that would be beneficial. And then, thinking of the future, like as I mentioned, the mobility sort of objectives, we're really strong in this, we think. Completing the North Winnipeg Parkway, we're really happy to see that. I think that's included within those linkages, and that the 2026 budget forecast is moving towards that. An upgrade to the Annabella Underpass, separate cycling facilities might be something that would make improvements here as well. It's a key community link, but right now it's really just a painted bike lane, and drainage is really an issue there as well. It tends to, especially in winter, it tends to accumulate as ice, which can be fairly hazardous. I think that both those two kind of fit within policy 5.2.2, which is the establishment and or enhancement of safe and accessible transportation connections. And then, this is a final sort of word of advice, is certainly as I think it's considered in the plan, but you just hopefully you'll keep an eye out for this as things move forward with the development of the rapid transit development along Main Street. I really want to make sure you're keeping an eye that those connections, both walking and cycling, are really encapsulated and captured and improved as much as possible. But thanks for the time. There's any questions, happy to answer.
Point out, in terms of being more cycling friendly and stuff, Rover will be under construction, I believe, this year to enhance its ability to accommodate active transportation as well as still having motor vehicles. And I think you're also aware that we finally seen a projected budget for 2028.
Yeah.
For the completion.
Absolutely. I'm really thrilled to see it. Yes.
Anyway, appreciate your presentation, and secure bikes are very important, that's for sure, but that's pretty well every neighborhood, right? See development coming along like that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you for your time.
That concludes my registered participants. I'll just check with the gallery. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for information on this application? Seeing none, Mr. Chairperson.
Colleagues, do we have any more questions of Ms. Ingram or Mr. Kosha?
There was a question earlier about potential uses in the industrial area. Are there specific uses, Rob, that you were going to mention, like particular businesses that we might see?
I think going back to the question, if I recall it correctly, it was about the mix of uses that might be allowed. Because the question is a mix of commercial uses, and a lot of them would fall under the M1 zone in general. So there would be several of those. I could provide some examples, but that was the thinking. It was light industrial perhaps, or anything along the lines that doesn't necessarily cause a nuisance is what we're going.
Odors, sound. What type of businesses?
I'll just no problem. I'll just go straight to the bylaw, so I don't misquote. But there are more as you go. Perhaps like fleet services as an example could be one. But there's even to some degree commercial uses that are allowed in the M1 zone as well.
And Cindy, you might know too, because we talk about this at her.
Right.
So it's top of mind.
I was going to clarify a key difference between M1 and M2 is that it's a number of uses that are smaller scale and can be indoors and less emphasis. They allow very limited or no outside storage. So for example, towing facility is not permitted in M1. We want to contain uses more to the building. And even M2 allows outside storage to a certain extent, and above that amount you would have to obtain a variance. There are a number of things that are conditional in M1, so it is a little bit more leaning towards the light manufacturing or production or sales and service uses.
Yeah, I think the point that I want to raise was when the mix was added, that there are even some commercial uses or personal services, a call center, an office, things like that. They're allowed in the M1 zone as well.
I just had I don't know what's set up on the other side of Higgins, but if it's generally all along Higgins, that's all M1, both sides. Our proposed light industrial, right? Under light industrial, there are uses such as, I don't know that there's a safe injection site that was set up there. We heard nothing about that, but
that's the first I've heard of that. I can't answer.
But the question is, like, when you're looking at M1 zoning, allowable health thing, like anything health related is allowed, right?
Yeah, let me get there just for a moment, please.
Yeah, there's things like social service facilities and things like that would be allowed in the M1 zone as an example.
There already is an AT child and family, I think, is on the south side of Sutherland near Euclid, I think. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for the public too, that there are allowable uses under there that, today and in the future with the secondary plan that would still allow that kind of idea, right? So, okay.
Okay, so we heard from one of the delegates about timelines of when the bylaw will be enacted. So in a perfect world, maybe could you walk through the process and approximate timelines of when we could see this be enacted? Because we have to do 3 readings, right? So we're just at the first reading juncture, so kind of maybe go through that.
So the path from here is that the committee here would make a recommendation, forward it onto the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. They would make a recommendation to the Executive Policy Committee and then eventually to council. What we're dealing with right now is basically the first reading phase. However, what we need is 3 readings of the bylaw for it to be enacted. And that typically, if things go very well, it could be quite early. I don't want to be too aggressive in terms of a timeline, but generally speaking, it'd be about a month to or so after the public hearing if things go well. That it can be all the way to the 3rd reading. There's 1 or 2 months, sorry, to travel through that process.
Just looking at the calendar because we're EPC and council probably in March.
Yep.
Will be the end of March for the first reading. I've seen in the past where 2nd and 3rd have happened during the same council meeting.
So
assuming that there's no opposition.
That could be
and everything goes well at PPND and EPC.
That could be, that's where we would connect that
Targeting
with legal and see if that's a doable thing that we can do. If that's realistic, and that's where I was aggressively saying that it could be as early as a month.
Okay, so aggressively, end of March. Assuming that there's no opposition during EPC and PPND, that happens in March. Should there be issues in March and legal can't, whatever the hiccups might be in March, we could be seeing the end of April council for 2nd and 3rd reading.
End of April would be typical is what I would say as well. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking at April. Our last council meeting is April 30th. We could see a 2nd and 3rd reading happen, and then the bylaw will be enacted, and then from there,
it's enforcement.
It's all enforcement.
As soon as that 3rd reading happens, it's enforcement effect.
It's enforcement effect. Okay.
All right. So we're ready for the applicant to come back and say.
Do we talk about this now?
We should.
Okay, so I believe there were some suggested language that needs amendments. Could you maybe talk about them? What or is that going to be the applicant that requires amendments?
I could take an early crack at that. They were all we circled back with our colleagues at Water and Waste, and they had some suggested friendly clarification type edits to the preamble section of section 7, and then to one objective. So it's actually not to any of the policies. It's just to make things a little bit clearer. And if you want, we can read those into the record for everybody if that's preferred.
You're gonna have to. I didn't hear it, so you're gonna have to read it into the record.
Yeah, no problem.
Also, you mentioned Water and Waste. I forgot to mention, and you should be promoting. Water and Waste now has a new way for developers to get a hold to find out about capacity and so on. And they have some specialized engineers in complex neighborhoods that can help the developers as they move along. So I think all the development community knows about it, but we're going to be hearing a report about that, I think.
I don't know, you're the chair of Water and Waste.
Well, that's what I say. We had a report that the new direct service line rapid communications with developers, working really good, so. But anyway, all right. I'd be interested to hear the changes.
If you want us to read them out, do you want us to read the original and then the revised?
I'll just, we can pinpoint. So. We have in. So it's in the preamble section, starting at additionally. We were saying, change that from scrap out additionally and put the development envisioned in chapter 3 may require improvements to local, which would be a new word added in, municipal servicing infrastructure instead of capacity. Then the next line, this is the actual wording, not changes, I'll note them. Land drainage from and wastewater generated in the plan area is instead of are is a change. Handled by the combined sewer system. In the past decades, this is a change. Portions of the plan area instead of the combined sewer system have been partially separated through the addition of, this is a change, and scratching out from the land drainage sewer. So the last sentence is, in the past decades, portions of the plan area have been partially separated through the addition of land drainage sewers. Then at the end of the preamble, there's additional wording that was added, and this is all new. This is, additionally, in some areas, the water system's fire protection performance may restrict certain types of development depending on use and building construction details or completion of water main upgrades. So that's a new statement, again, in the preamble section. And then we have one change to the objective just for clarification, which is objective 7.1D. And that is ensure that the sum of wastewater and land drainage discharges into the combined sewer system does not increase. And that wording is instead of ensure land drainage discharges into the combined sewer system do not increase. So it's a minor change for clarification there. And those are all of them.
From what I can tell, so you're just kind of getting water and waste wanted a better definition of the servicing capacity instead of calling it infrastructure. So it seems like they're just trying to tighten up the language and give better preamble of the community.
Yeah.
Okay, supportive of that. And then, okay, so talk to me about this. Additionally, in some areas of the water system's fire protection performance may restrict certain types of development. I don't know, is water and waste available online? I'm not understanding that.
Is your concern just the meaning of the fire flow performance?
Yeah, fire protection performance may restrict certain types of development.
I don't know if you would like to speak to that.
Well, I think it's just that would be reviewed on a case by case basis. And I think what they wanted was just more of an accurate reflection of this might come into play on a case by case basis that there might be additional measures needed, and just adding that clarification. That's all.
Like sprinklers.
Exactly.
Well,
Like
that's
at the
sprinkler
construction
systems,
stage.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
sprinklers.
I was just gonna answer. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And there's complexities, yeah.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
No, Councilor Sharma, no. All right, so the applicant's coming back.
Oh, wait, one more question, sorry. Secured indoor bike parking? Talk to us about that a little bit, about the indoor parking.
Yeah, maybe I could start, Anya could fill in. There's a variety of parking options that we listed for consideration that can be considered at a rezoning stage. We tend to put it as an option because we don't know what we're always going to get from every single developer and the volumes that we may get. So it's typically on a case by case basis, and we generally encourage this right from the start on any of these processes. And that is captured. Anya, if you want to just say what it is.
Yeah, so Mike Mark Coho did mention it, but in the general architecture site policies that apply throughout the plan area, that's where we have the policy that encourages innovative and flexible solutions to parking. And because it applies to both all the infill, mid-rise and high-rise, that's part of why it's encouraged, because you wouldn't want to have really harsh kind of mandatory policies for very small development, basically. If you're looking at a duplex, triplex, it may or may not be the same needs. And in the higher rise and mid-rise section specifically, we note support for reduced or removed parking minimums. But it's again not saying, it's kind of deferring it to the rezoning process, because the zoning bylaw has its own requirements. And by having those two kind of together, it's encouraging those flexible options in order to support those reductions as well.
Yeah, actually, this committee has heard a couple of multifamily being built with indoor bike parking on the main floor. That's the one at Lansdowne in Maine, as well as I think Councillor Sharma just had one up in Precinct G. What's that called? High Point area? Yeah. Anyway. So those options are in there, right? Like,
Yes, so the innovative and flexible solutions includes shared parking agreements, dedicated space for car share vehicles, public electric vehicle charging stations, and provision of accessible outdoor and indoor lockable bicycle parking spaces. We did note accessible to make sure that those kinds of facilities would be easy to access. That's sometimes a challenge. Yeah.
Good, yeah, I'm just going through my
Call
notes.
the applicant.
Yeah.
All right, so if the applicant would like to come back and speak in rebuttal to any comments made, however, at this time, no new information.
I'd regret if I didn't have the opportunity to say thank you for giving us the ability to do this plan. It's been a really interesting project. I think we've spoken with a lot of really good people, and we understand what they need in order to thrive in this neighborhood. And I believe our plan has provided that. This has been a very rewarding experience for myself. I really like Point Douglas. I didn't know much about it before we started this project, but I spent an awful lot of time there. I think the future of Point Douglas is very bright. Well, I'm very glad to be part.
The chairperson would like to thank yourself as well as our consultants. That very good consultation with the community, and you had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in South and North Point Douglas, which is, Councillor Santos, you would agree, it gets a bad rep sometimes in public media, but it's actually both South and North Point Douglas are great places to live and work and do all those things. So thanks for your work on that. Much appreciated. Right, Councillor Santos.
That's right.
Gonna help me walk through, I am supportive of the amendments that the public service is gonna bring forward. Okay, so if you can help me with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried.
Is this where I do the amendments?
This is where the amendments are done, so the motion would be that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in with the following amendments. And those are delete the period at the end of recommendation 1 and replace with the following. In quotations with the following amendments. A, on page 34 of the draft bylaw, second paragraph, 1, delete additionally, comma, the, and replace with capital the. 2, add in quotations local immediately before in quotations municipal servicing. 3, delete in quotations capacity and replace with in quotations infrastructure. 4, delete in quotations are and replace with in quotations is. 5, delete in quotations of the combined sewer system and replace with in quotations portions of the planned area. And 6, delete in quotations from the and replace with in quotations through the addition of. B, on page 34, and the following new paragraph immediately preceding section 7.1 objectives, in quotations, additionally, comma, in some areas, the water system's fire protection performance may restrict certain types of development, comma, depending on use and building construction details or completion of water main upgrades, period. And C, on page 34, in objective 7.1.d, 1, add in quotations that the sum of wastewater and immediately preceding in quotations land drainage discharges. And 2, delete in quotations the word do and replace with the word does.
And forward it to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. My supporting reasons. Well, this has been a very long process. And I want to thank, first of all, my counterpart in North Point Douglas, Councillor Edie, for supporting me in spending some federal dollars to do a secondary plan revisions to South and North Point Douglas, and we're calling it Point Douglas. If anything, this is a joint effort for Councillor Edie and I to move forward on some underutilized land, especially industrial land, heavy industrial lands, to revitalize and bring a lot of TLC and love back to North Point Douglas. I also want to thank the public service, specifically James Pratt and WSP Megan Bowles, for their love and care and time and efforts to really meet with the community. I remember speaking with James right off the bat saying, you know, unfortunately, this is a very underserved community. They don't use technology. They're not on the computer. They're struggling. They're just trying to put, you know, meals on the table. And if you really, really want to connect, you really have to be within that community. You have to meet with them in person. Handing out flyers and doing online, you know, feedback is not going to really reach them. And I want to commend him for doing that with WSP. So thank you, James. From what I heard back from the community, they really felt heard. And, you know, we knew it was going to take a much longer process, and we were okay with that because we wanted to get it right. And I think with this plan, you got it right. So thank you, James. Thank you, Megan, for the efforts, the kind and care that you've done with this community. As you can see, there was no opposition. And to me, that means people were heard. And I wanted to thank them that. And I can't thank you enough. I probably have more better speech further on, but I don't want to cry, but I really thank you for that. Some really good work moving forward with the gentle density, pedestrian friendly community, and dealing with some of the complexities in that industrial area. You know, I find it challenging because, you know, we want to see more residential units, affordable residential. We don't want to gentrify the community, but we also want to see some beautiful landscaping and beautiful, you know, high rises. But being cognizant of the current employers that are there and the employees who want to work and walk and live there. So I think this does strike a balance in the industrial area in South Point Douglas with the three different sub areas. So good work on that. Very supportive. And seeing that better connection with the parks and open spaces, we're seeing some really good riverbank access to along the river. Some new parks and pedestrians around the point. I think that is key for residences who want to be able to go out of their door or go out of their apartment complex and be able to go down and walk along the point. I think that's fantastic. And to be also mindful of some reconciliation and understanding this is one of the oldest communities in Winnipeg, or, you know, could be one of the original communities. So there is a lot of heritage, there is a lot of First Nations, Indigenous communities that are here. And to ensure that we are being cognizant of the land and cognizant of what has occurred here, I think that's fantastic. I think those are all I have right now on the top of my head. So yeah, a lot of great work and really excited to push this forward onto the next steps at PPND, which I sit on as well. Am I allowed to hear this at PPND?
Well,
Now that I've made a decision here?
yeah, at PPMD, it won't be a hearing.
Okay,
It'll be on the agenda. The hearing's conducted here and then it stays here.
okay, so I don't have to recuse myself from PPND. Okay,
It's not like a subdivision, right?
okay.
Is that correct? Like if it was a oh no, you can still speak to a subdivision too if you're on P and D.
Okay.
Sorry.
Those are my supporting reasons.
Councillor Sharma, did you want to say anything?
Just, Councillor Santos, it's been a long process, as you mentioned. Public service has done a fantastic job in the planner making goals. It's all about engaging also with the public, and I see that's been done. So I'm happy to support the plans as they've been submitted to us. Thank you.
Excellent. And I already complimented our consultant and our city administration. And I'm not going to mention anything else because I have a respect for my two leader colleagues here. And I'm just going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried.
Okay, and I'll move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Mr. Prinsloo.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Excellent.
I'll move adjournment, consent agenda.
You,
adjournment
Councillor
at
Santos, all in favor?
12:21
Yeah.
PM. Oh,
Those in favor, and I already acknowledged you said